"Sir, your daughter's heart is failing. We need to operate now." "How much?" he whispered. The silence that followed said everything. His daughter collapsed at school, and doctors said she needed heart surgery, fast. Eli had no money, no insurance, just fear. For 3 nights he didn't sleep, barely breathing beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, praying for a miracle. Then the hospital called. Someone had paid for everything. Relief washed over him until he opened the billing file and saw the name. It was her, the woman he'd pushed away, the woman who saw his worth before he could. What happened next changed 3 lives forever. Eli Monroe had never been to a place like this. The La Fontaine was all polished marble floors, golden chandeliers, and waiters who walked like they owned the silence. Every table flickered with candlelight. Violin music drifted through the air like something out of a dream. But Eli wasn't here for the ambiance. He was here for Noah. His 5-year-old daughter stood beside him in a hand-stitched lavender dress, one her late mother had sewn before the chemo took away her strength. A pale ribbon held back her soft curls. She clutched a tiny stuffed bear in one hand, her eyes bright with wonder. "This place is like the castle in Mommy's books," she whispered. Eli forced a smile. His hands were calloused, scrubbed until his knuckles cracked. He wore his cleanest flannel, tucked in tight. His boots, though polished, still betrayed the truth. He was a mechanic pretending he belonged in a place where forks had more pieces than a toolbox. He approached the host stand. "I have a reservation," he said. "Monroe, 7 o'clock. The maitre d' didn't look up right away. When he did, his practiced smile barely reached his eyes. He flipped through the leather-bound book with leisurely disdain. "I'm afraid there's no reservation under that name." Eli's brows furrowed. "I called 3 days ago, spoke with someone named Gina. And I'm afraid we have a strict dress code," the man added, shutting the book with a quiet finality. "No denim, no workwear." Eli exhaled slowly. "It's my daughter's birthday, her first one without her mom." The maitre d' raised an eyebrow, unmoved. "That's unfortunate, but we're at capacity, and appearances matter here at La Fontaine." Noah tugged at Eli's sleeve, confused. "Daddy, why can't we go in?" Eli crouched to her level, masking the tightness in his throat. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll go somewhere else." "But you said this one's special," she whispered, "like the ones in Mommy's stories." The lobby fell quiet. A few guests turned their heads, some with discomfort, others with silent judgment. Eli felt the heat rise in his cheeks. His pride clenched into his fists. He was about to walk away. Then came the voice. "I believe there's been a mistake." It was clear, calm, and commanding. Eli turned. From a corner table by the window, a woman stood. She wore a deep green dress that matched the serenity in her gaze. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant twist. She carried herself not with entitlement, but with the grace of someone who had learned pain and chose kindness anyway. Vanessa Kingsley. She looked directly at the maitre d'. "This gentleman and his daughter are my guests." A hush fell over the room. The maitre d' stiffened. "Miss Kingsley, are you certain?" "I am," she said coolly. "Unless you'd prefer I say so again." "Louder." The maitre d' swallowed hard, then turned to Eli. "Right this way, sir." Eli hesitated, stunned. Vanessa stepped forward and offered her hand, not with pity but with purpose. "I have a table for 3, she said gently, "if you'll do me the honor." Eli's hand was still hovering in midair when Vanessa gently took it, warm and assured. Her eyes held no judgment, only quiet understanding. For a man who was used to tightening bolts and lifting engines, the softness of her gesture felt more disarming than anything. He glanced down at Noah, who looked up at him with silent hope. So he nodded. "Thank you," Eli said, barely above a whisper. Vanessa led them through the hushed dining room, past crisp tablecloths and diners pretending not to stare. At their table by the window, the candles danced between crystal water glasses and fine silverware. A violinist played something slow and dreamy in the distance. She pulled out a chair for Noah herself, then turned to the waiter. "Could we bring the children's menu, please? And a Shirley Temple, with extra cherries." Noah gasped. "You knew what I wanted." Vanessa smiled. "Just a lucky guess." Eli sat across from her, Uneasy at first, he kept adjusting his sleeves, his boots shifting beneath the table. The atmosphere was so foreign it might as well have been outer space. But then he looked at Noah, her curls bouncing as she stared wide-eyed at a napkin folded into the shape of a swan, and some of the tension in his shoulders released. "Is this a fairy tale restaurant, Daddy?" she whispered. Eli opened his mouth but hesitated. He glanced across the table. Vanessa leaned in with a soft smile. "Maybe it is now, sweetheart." Noah beamed, folding her hands neatly on her lap like a princess in training. The waiter returned with warm bread and drinks, and for a moment, the three of them sat in a gentle rhythm, like they'd always belonged at that table. Eli finally spoke. "I really appreciate this. You didn't have to." Vanessa shook her head lightly. "You don't owe me anything. I didn't do it out of pity." "Then why?" he asked. Her fingers traced the rim of her glass slowly, thoughtfully. "Because I remembered what it felt like." Eli tilted his head slightly. She continued, voice quiet but steady. "When I was 9, my father took me to a nice restaurant. He had been saving for months, wanted to surprise me on my birthday, but he forgot to check the prices. When the bill came, he couldn't pay." She looked past them for a second, into a memory only she could see. "They threw us out, called him a liar, a thief. I remember standing outside in the cold, still wearing my party dress, watching my father cry." The table fell silent. Vanessa blinked, coming back to the present. "That moment never left me. I promised myself, if I ever had the chance, I'd never let someone feel that same shame, especially not in front of their child." Eli stared at her. No words came, just a quiet respect settling in his chest. Noah tugged at his sleeve again. "Daddy, remember what Mommy used to say about birthdays?" He nodded slowly. "Of course, Peanut." Noah turned to Vanessa. "She said birthdays should feel like fairy tales, with magic and nice people." Vanessa laughed softly, eyes glistening. "She must have been a remarkable woman." "She was," Eli said, voice low and even. Dinner arrived. Noah clapped when her plate came with star-shaped fries and a tiny flag. The tension that had hung over the table like mist slowly lifted. By dessert, a dome of orange mousse topped with candied peel, Eli no longer looked at Vanessa like a stranger. He looked at her like someone who had stepped out of the shadows and done something extraordinary, without needing anything in return. Maybe this night really was magic, not the kind from fairy tales, but the kind you remember forever. After that night at La Fontaine, Eli thought he'd never see Vanessa Kingsley again. Maybe she'd return to her world of designer heels, charity galas, and quiet solitude. Maybe that one gesture was just a rare intersection between two lives from very different roads. But then she appeared again. It was a Tuesday afternoon at Bell and Pine Books, the little shop tucked between a florist and an antique store. Eli had promised Noah a new book for her birthday, a tradition he and his late wife had started when Noah was still too young to read. Noah was curled up on a beanbag in the children's aisle, surrounded by plush animals and colorful covers, already deep in debate over which fairy tale she liked best. Eli trailed behind, his hands in his jacket pockets, when a familiar voice caught his ear. "Well, hello again." He turned. Vanessa stood by a shelf of hardcover novels, a thoughtful frown on her face, a worn copy of Anne of Green Gables in her hands. She wore a soft gray sweater, no makeup, hair pulled into a low bun. The elegance remained, but today it felt more human than ethereal. "Miss Kingsley," he said, offering a guarded nod. She raised an eyebrow, smiling. "Vanessa, unless you want me to feel like your tax advisor." He smirked despite himself. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I live a block away," she replied, holding up the book. "This place is dangerous. I come in for one title and leave with 7 I don't need." Noah popped up from behind the shelf. "Miss Vanessa." Vanessa's smile lit up the aisle. "Well, now I know who the real reason I came was." From then on, the meetings came more often, though never forced. They bumped into each other at the farmer's market, where Vanessa bought Noah fresh strawberries. Then again at the park, where she gently tied the girl's shoelaces without being asked. She showed up at the community concert, offered Noah cotton candy at the food truck festival, and always knelt to speak to her at eye level. Eli noticed it all, and while Noah quickly took to calling her Miss Vanessa, Eli kept his distance, until one afternoon he finally spoke up. "She's getting attached," he said quietly, as they watched Noah giggling at a puppet show. Vanessa turned, surprised by his bluntness. "Is that a bad thing?" Eli looked at his daughter's laughing face. "It could be, if people don't stick around." Vanessa didn't flinch. "I'm not here for charity, Eli. I like spending time with her. With both of you." He didn't answer, just nodded once, his expression unreadable. But that distance began to dissolve one evening, under a sky of stars at an outdoor movie night. As children laughed and popcorn crinkled in paper bags, Vanessa leaned toward him. "I never told you about my daughter," she whispered. Eli turned, his eyes narrowing softly. "Her name was Lila," Vanessa said. "She was 7. She had a heart defect, and I couldn't save her." The silence between them shifted. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was sacred. And for the first time, Eli saw not the woman who had stepped in to help him, but a mother who had once prayed just as hard, held just as tight, and lost more than most hearts could bear. It changed everything. It happened on a Wednesday. Eli was halfway through changing the oil on a customer's truck when his phone buzzed 3 times in a row. Rapid, urgent, unignorable. He wiped his hands on a rag, frowning at the screen. First it was the school, then an unknown number, and then again. By the 3rd call, his heart was already pounding. He answered on the 4th ring. "Mr. Monroe, this is Nurse Rachel Monroe from Lakeview Elementary. I need you to stay calm. Your daughter Noah collapsed during story time. We've called an ambulance." Time twisted. Eli dropped the wrench. Everything else, the truck, the oil, the tools, disappeared in a blur of sirens and flashing lights. By the time he reached the hospital, Noah was already in a room. Her tiny body lay pale and still beneath a blanket. Wires connected her chest to blinking monitors. The teddy bear she brought everywhere was clutched tight in one hand, its ears wet from sweat. A doctor approached, calm and composed. "I'm Dr. Derek Saunders," he said. "It appears Noah has a congenital heart valve defect, likely present since birth but subtle. Fatigue, shortness of breath, symptoms easily mistaken in children." Eli swallowed hard. "What are you saying?" "She needs surgery, soon. Valve repair. If untreated, it could progress." "How much?" Eli asked, already fearing the answer. Dr. Saunders paused, then gave a number. It felt like being punched in the chest. It was more than Eli earned in a year. Insurance? He didn't have it. Savings? Long gone since his wife's funeral. All he had left was Noah, and now she needed a miracle. For 3 days, he didn't leave the hospital. He slept upright in a stiff chair, holding her hand, watching her chest rise and fall with fragile rhythm. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped, but Eli never moved. He was afraid if he let go, even for a second, he might lose her too. Then the call came. The hospital's billing office. "We're calling to inform you that an anonymous donor has come forward. Noah's surgery and full treatment have been covered. Completely." Eli froze. His first reaction was disbelief. Then, relief. Powerful, overwhelming relief. But relief quickly turned to suspicion. The next morning, while sorting through the mountain of hospital forms, he found the billing summary. And there, at the bottom of the final page, just above the words "Authorized Payment Source," was a signature. Vanessa M. Kingsley. He stood there holding the paper, his chest tight with something that wasn't gratitude. Not yet. Not exactly. It was confusion, and something dangerously close to anger. He found her later that afternoon in the greenhouse behind the community center. She was kneeling in the sunlight, repotting lavender, her hands dusty with soil. Eli didn't speak at first, and just held out the document. "You paid," he said flatly. Vanessa looked up slowly. She didn't deny it. "You went behind my back." "I had to," she replied gently. She didn't have time for pride. He stepped closer, jaw tight. "Do you think I'm some charity case? Some broken dad who just needs a rescue?" "No," she said, standing. "I think you're a father who's drowning, and I had a lifeboat. You should have asked. You would have said no." "Damn right I would have." Her expression softened but didn't retreat. "This wasn't pity, Eli." "Then what was it?" She took a slow breath. "It was grief. Finding somewhere to go." The words hit harder than he expected. I couldn't save my daughter, she said. I had the money, the doctors, everything. But I was too late, and I live with that every single day. She blinked quickly, fighting the emotion rising in her throat. But I saw Noah, and I saw you, and I saw a second chance. Not for me, for her, for you. Eli looked away, his fists clenched at his sides. Vanessa's voice softened. If it makes you feel better, you can pay me back. Over time, or never. I don't care. He still didn't answer. She picked up her bag, brushing the dirt from her apron. But don't punish your daughter for the kindness you can't accept. Then she left, quietly. No drama, no tears, just grace, walking away with dirt-streaked hands and a shattered heart. And Eli, standing alone amid blooming lavender and broken pride, wondering if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The days that followed the confrontation were thick with silence. Vanessa didn't call. Eli didn't reach out. He stayed by Noah's side as she recovered, adjusting her blankets, reading old storybooks in a strained voice, pretending to be calm when inside he was a hurricane of guilt and shame. Then one evening, while Eli was sorting through the mail at the kitchen table, Noah walked in holding something behind her back. Her cheeks were still pale, her steps slow, but her eyes carried a quiet strength. I made something, she said softly. She handed him a page from her sketchpad. It was a drawing, crude and childlike, but beautiful in its meaning. 3 figures stood under a sky full of stars, a man with short, rough lines for hands, a little girl with curls and a dress, and a tall woman in a green dress whose hand rested gently on the man's shoulder. Above them, in a child's uneven handwriting, were the words, family. Eli stared at the picture, his throat tightening. She was in my dream again, Noah whispered. Mommy. Eli looked at her, stunned. She was? Noah nodded. She said, we're allowed to love more than one person. His eyes burned, but he held it in. He kissed Noah's forehead and tucked the drawing into his wallet without a word. That night, Eli didn't fix a car. He didn't sort bills. He didn't sit in quiet guilt. He baked. He remembered something Vanessa once said during one of their long walks through the farmer's market, that her grandmother used to make cinnamon apple bread every Sunday. It was the only thing that made the house smell like love, she told him with a wistful laugh. So he made it. The apples were slightly overripe, the cinnamon uneven, the measurements more instinct than recipe. But it was warm. It was real. The next morning, Eli wrapped the loaf in a clean towel and drove to her office. The receptionist raised an eyebrow but didn't stop him. Maybe she recognized his name, or maybe she recognized the expression on his face, the look of a man who had something important to say. Vanessa looked up from her desk, startled. I baked, he said simply, lifting the loaf. Cinnamon apple bread. You said it reminded you of home. She stood, slowly, unsure. Can I sit? He asked. She nodded. He placed the bread down carefully between them and unwrapped it. The scent of cinnamon filled the room. It's probably too sweet, he said. I never measure right. Vanessa smiled softly. It smells perfect. For a long moment, they just sat, in the quiet, in the warmth. Then Eli took a breath. I was wrong, he said. I let my pride get louder than my heart, and I hurt you. She looked down, then back at him. I wasn't upset because you yelled, Eli. I was upset because I never wanted you to think I saw you as weak. He met her gaze fully for the first time in weeks. You made me brave again, he said. The hallway outside the operating room was too quiet. Eli Monroe sat stiff-backed in the hospital chair, hands clasped so tightly the color had drained from his knuckles. Every sound, the ticking clock, the occasional squeak of sneakers on linoleum, felt deafening. Beside him, Vanessa Kingsley sat still, her hand wrapped gently around his. He hadn't let go of it once. Not when they wheeled Noah away. Not when Dr. Derek Saunders calmly explained the intricacies of heart valve repair. Not even when Eli's voice cracked and he whispered, Please just bring her back to me. Vanessa didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her thumb moved slowly across the back of his hand, steady and warm, a rhythm that said, You're not alone. And then, after hours that felt like lifetimes, the doors opened. Dr. Saunders emerged, tired but smiling. "She did great," he said, removing his cap. "No complications. The valve is repaired. She's going to be okay." Eli's breath left him all at once. He dropped his head into his hands, shoulders shaking with something between a sob and a prayer. Vanessa wrapped both arms around him, holding tight, and for the first time in years she cried. Not from grief, but from overwhelming relief. They waited another 2 hours before being allowed into the recovery room. Noah looked so small under the white hospital sheets, her chest wrapped in gauze, her cheeks flushed from medication. But her eyes opened as they walked in, blinking against the light. "Daddy," she whispered. Eli rushed to her side. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Vanessa stepped forward gently, brushing a curl away from Noah's forehead. "And me too, sunshine." Noah gave a tiny smile. "Is this my new heart?" Eli laughed softly, tears still clinging to his lashes. "No, Peanut. It's the same heart, just stronger now." There was a beat of silence. Then Noah turned her head toward Vanessa. "Did Daddy tell you any fairy tales while I was sleeping?" The question caught Vanessa off guard. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. She looked at Eli, who glanced away, cheeks reddening with a rare, boyish shyness. Vanessa leaned in closer, brushing Noah's hand lightly. "He didn't tell me with words," she said softly, "but he showed me, with how he looked at me." Noah furrowed her brows in confusion. "What did the look say?" Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "It said, 'You are someone worth loving.'" Noah smiled, her eyelids fluttering as sleep returned. Eli looked at Vanessa, and this time, he didn't look away. Side by side, they sat in the quiet, hands intertwined again. Not just for comfort now, but something deeper, something lasting. And as the monitors beeped their steady rhythm, and Noah slept in healing peace, Eli knew one thing for certain. Fairy tales weren't just stories. Sometimes they were surgeries. And sometimes they were second chances. Spring returned with gentle sun and fresh beginnings. In the backyard of a modest ivy-covered home, tulips bloomed along the fence, and a wooden swing swayed under the whispering oak. Built by Eli's hands but painted with Noah's laughter. Vanessa had moved in months ago, not all at once, but gradually, like sunrise. A toothbrush left on the sink, a favorite mug in the cabinet, then the soft hum of her voice in the kitchen, the rustle of her planting marigolds along the path. She didn't just move into the house, she filled it. Noah called her Miss Vanessa for a while, then one day simply Nessa, and eventually, without prompting or fanfare, my other mommy. The three of them fell into rhythm. Weekend pancakes, blanket forts in the living room, trips to the farmer's market, late-night whispers and storybook endings. Their home wasn't perfect, but it was full. The day of Noah's 6th birthday arrived beneath a sky of soft clouds and golden light. They returned to La Fontaine, this time through doors that opened wide. The maitre d' bowed warmly. "Welcome back, Mr. Monroe, Miss Kingsley, and happy birthday, young lady." Balloons arched above their table. Candles flickered on a 3-tiered strawberry cake. Noah, glowing in a yellow dress, held her ukulele close. She stood on her chair, heart-shaped clip in her curls, and beamed. "I used to sing this song with my first mommy," she said, smiling, "but now I get to sing it for both my people." Then she sang, off-key, joyful, pure. And as her voice floated through the candlelight, Eli reached beneath the table and took Vanessa's hand. Not because he needed to, but because he loved her. After the guests had gone, and the last slice of cake was packed away, the three of them walked to the park under a fading pink sky. Noah twirled barefoot on the grass. Vanessa leaned into Eli's shoulder. Their story had no big promises, no need for vows or declarations. They didn't need to say it out loud. They were already a family, a real one, made of second chances, gentle mornings, quiet nights, and love that stayed. Always. There's something timeless about the idea of family, and yet in today's world, it rarely fits into one perfect mold. This story wasn't about wealth or grand gestures. It was about showing up even when your hands are empty. About love that doesn't announce itself, but proves itself quietly, day after day. In a time when many feel isolated, single parents doing their best, widows holding on to memories, children navigating loss, this tale reminds us healing doesn't always come through medicine alone. Sometimes it's someone who kneels to tie a child's shoe. Sometimes it's a second chance, when you thought you'd already had your only one. What would you have done in Eli's shoes? Could you accept help if it came with no strings? And what if the person you love most wasn't part of your past, but someone brave enough to stand beside your future? We'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments. Have you ever been surprised by someone's kindness? Do you believe second families can be just as strong as first ones? To everyone who's watched until now, thank you. Your time, your hearts, and your thoughts mean everything to us. If this story touched you, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to Warm Soul Stories, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a tale that could stay with you forever. Because around here, we believe the warmest stories are the ones that feel like home. Until next time, take care and keep believing in quiet miracles.